often you gonna be retwisting your hair, comrade? You can't be twisting your hair so often.
It's been like 2 weeks.
Black girl, yes, and you just started. Black power, comrade Christopher.
Black power, y'all.
See, I think I was like that in my life journey. Like every 2 weeks, I was trying to retwist it, but girl, like it causes early thinning. Like your hair can stop thinning.
I don't need that.
Yeah, right.
So I just gotta deal with the in between.
Yeah, what they call the ugly phase.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's not really an ugly phase.
I don't think
it's a
so.
growth process.
It's the transitional phase.
Black power, everyone! Y'all come on in the room. The Revolutionary Book Club is back. We back in the building. Black power, Valencia.
We missed y'all last week.
Yes, it's hard to think that it was just last week. It feels so much longer, right?
Yeah. It feels that way, but we did miss y'all.
Y'all come on in. Black power. Please make sure you share. #share when you shared it.
Share.
And let's get this political education going this Sunday morning. Black power. So I hope y'all got the PDF of the book. If you don't, please let us know in the comments so we can get y'all situated. And I forgot to put these. There we go. Let me pin this real quick. And we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So Black Power, everyone. Welcome to the Revolutionary Book Club with your boy Chief Dia and my girl, my home skillet biscuit, Chief Nyah.
Black Power, y'all.
Black Power, yes. So we were not able to do the book club last week, last Sunday, because Black Hammer, we participated in the Atlanta Black Pride that took place, and I believe it was actually the 23rd annual Black Pride that took place last week. So we were there doing that. It was a great experience. I want to give a shout out to Amber Moore and Terrence Stewart. Those are the two, the brothers and sisters that we were working with for the action that we did. It was a very, very, very successful action. I think we got like 189 contacts or something like that.
Yeah, it was close to 200.
Yeah. We were able to do outreach. We were able to interact with our people. We conducted a very, very powerful workshop, and the video is on the Black Hammer Facebook page, so you can actually go through the videos and check it out and just look at it. And it was just great. And I think we did a great job of letting our GSNA brothers and sisters know, trans, non-binary brothers and sisters know that they're needed in the revolutionary work, that we can't complete, the struggle for liberation without them. So it was a very, very powerful weekend. Shout out to comrades Gigi, Robert, comrade Mac, who came from Houston with his wife. Comrade Gigi and Robert came all the way from Orlando, Florida. Comrade Nyah was there. Comrade Muhammadu, Comrade Ghazi, my frat brother Josh came from Columbia, South Carolina to help us out as well. It was really just a great weekend. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. And just to let you guys know, we are still reading Huey P. Newton's Revolutionary Suicide, which is his autobiography. And today we're going to be reviewing chapters 7 through 10. Yes, 7 through 10. All right? So, let's get this thing started. Alrighty, so we're beginning with chapter 7. And in chapter 7, Comrade Huey just pretty much speaks to himself being like a functional illiterate. Meaning that, he was able to function every day without being able to read properly. And, we know a lot of family members, a lot of cousins, uncles, aunts, even parents, you know, who are functional illiterates, you know, just the history of our grandparents and our great-great-grandparents having to drop out of school in order to work and support the family and things of that nature. And, you know, even not being able to read is not a consequence of our own, because, I mean, like, when you think about it, how was our families able to survive if our grandparents didn't drop out of school to help support the family? If, you know, like, it's no possible way. So even being a functional illiterate person is a condition of your oppression.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he talked about that. He also spoke about how, you know, just throughout his whole school career or whatever, up until like high school, that he wasn't going to be able to go to college. Black Power Karina, that he wasn't college material. At this point, they had him taking IQ tests and things of that nature, and I think he scored like a 74.
Yep.
And, you know, just it blossomed this thing in him that he had to set, you know, his school administration wrong, you know, prove them wrong, that he was able to go to school, he was able to succeed in college and things of that nature. And at this point, he was also inspired by his brother Melvin, which we hear about a lot in the previous chapters, who was also in college at the time, and just how motivational that was for him to see.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just, you know, blown away. Like, the fact that, I don't want to say I'm blown away, because I'm not surprised, because I know too many, you know, intelligent, genius Black people that end up teaching themselves how to read, how to write, how to function in everyday society. Somebody very close to me was basically told the same thing.
Yeah.
You're not college material. You're not, you know, you won't, you know, some people are only meant to do these types of jobs versus those types of jobs. And that person was, I know in my school setting, where I'm, the school that I went to, they had a program for certain people to go into the occupational diploma route, which means you're not getting an actual high school diploma. You're getting something that's more like a certificate, and you can go out and just get a job. Like, you can work at Walmart, or you can work anywhere like that, which that's what some people have to do. But this person that I know actually said, well, I don't want to do that, even though they're saying that I can't get a regular diploma. I'm going to get a regular diploma. And they did what they needed to do to make that happen, with no help from the school system.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's how it's been, you know, just for African people. And when you think about it, you know, like, us having to teach ourselves how to read, or even just how to function, period, in this, you know, colonial society, you know, these are things that white people have never in their lives had to worry about.
Right.
You know, when you think about, you know, white children in this whole recent thing that came out with all of these celebrities who were paying these Ivy League schools in order to enroll their kids into these Ivy League schools, you know, versus, you know, African people within our rural communities, our oppressed, gentrified communities. You know, we view education, and it's impressed upon us that education is our only way out.
Right.
And, you know, just being a college graduate and having a degree, which is basically pretty much just nothing but a damn piece of paper, it's not guaranteed that you will graduate, you know, from college and, you know, secure a job in the career that you want. You know, versus these white students who already have parents, relatives in these high up positions who out of college, it's just like, submit a resume and then you're automatically hired. And then I just also real quickly wanted to, well, before I speak to that, how Huey taught himself how to read was by reading Plato's Republic. And, you know, he speaks about being in his room upon like 8 to 9 hours a day, going over each word, any word that he didn't know, he'd go look it up in the dictionary. He even read the dictionary. You know, and, you know, even though he was using these things, these, you know, teaching himself how to read, because at this point he was still focusing on, you know, proving his, you know, school administration that he was college materials. I mean, it undoubtedly speaks to the perseverance that we have, you know, as a spirit, you know, as African people, that, you know, no matter what, we're going to struggle to achieve what we need to achieve. And I think that's a great example of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because think about, like, you know, the odds are already against you. Mm-hmm. And they had already written Huey off. Mm-hmm. And said he wasn't going to go anywhere. And he, you know, and then to ask anybody else for any type of help was humiliating. Mm-hmm. Because, like, even, you know, where he talked about his brother, you know, I didn't, you know, and I'd ask a word, you know, he could just sense it on his face. He didn't necessarily have to say anything, but just think about the humiliation of having to ask what a word that most other people would know how to say, but it's just like, how do you not know that? Mm-hmm. So, you know, he said, I'm going to teach myself how to read. And just looking back and seeing everything that Huey was able to accomplish in his lifetime, knowing that at one point he was illiterate and taught himself how to read, and the school had really played no role in that whatsoever. So that's really profound.
Yeah, really profound. And it just makes me, you know, think about, well, okay, two quick things. Just like growing up, you know, my oldest sibling dropped out of high school, and you know, it would just be points, even when he was in school, when he would come to me to, you know, ask me if he spelt this word right or which word he should be using. And even though my initial reaction wasn't like, you don't know this word or you don't know that word, right, my thought process at this time was like, damn, I didn't verbally say it, and I tried to, you know, mask my expression, but it was these ideas that white power put in me that I was somehow above my brother because he didn't know how to use this word or he didn't know how to spell this word and things of that nature. And this leads to my second point, is just, you know, how African people, colonized people, get trapped in this thinking that there's something that we have to prove to white power.
Right.
In that, you know, going throughout school, they feed us these lies that you can be anything that you want to be, you know, as long as you just do the right thing, you get your education and things of that nature. And even when we come to understand that when we do these things by the book, by the process, all of that other type of shit like that, even if you do it that way, it's still no guarantee that you as an African person, as a colonized person, will live, you know, a life that's free of colonialism. And it's not possible. And we see so many of our friends and families strive to live to this American dream, and it only exasperates the contradictions that we see within our communities, such as drug use, such as domestic violence, such as, you know, all of these different outrageous behaviors we see, you know, within our communities, because we're struggling to mirror this dream that has been imposed upon us when we don't, I mean, like, we haven't even been equipped with what we need to achieve these dreams. So when you don't become successful, what do you turn to? You turn to drugs, you turn to alcohol, you turn to all of these different alternate things that are trying to fill this void that has been put upon us by white power.
Absolutely.
Get back, you know? So, yeah, okay, we can go to the hashtag read that back parts now. So if y'all want, did you have anything else to add? Or?
No.
Okay, so if you could, comrades, put your hashtag read that back parts here in the comments so we can open up chapter 7 for discussion real quick. And my point of, well, my read that back part comes from page 54, and it's like the last it starts at the last paragraph at the bottom, and so I'll go ahead and read it. It says, "It seems to me that nothing is more painful than a sense of shame that overwhelms you and afflicts the soul. This pain may not even be your fault, but it can still be very acute. It hurts more when you know that there is no natural process, as in the body, whereby the pain will go away. You have to relieve it with your own strength of will, your own discipline, and your own determination. I've been hurt many times in fights, but nothing equaled the pain I felt at not being able to read. The pain from fighting went away in time. The shame I felt would not go away. Black power.
So, yeah, that is, I mean, it's very heavy because something that's been denied. I mean, one, you have to remember that, I mean, there was once upon a time where reading and writing for a Black or African person was illegal. It could get you killed if you knew how to do those things, or if it was discovered that you knew how to do those things. And even when it was supposedly, legalized, you know, the norm was still that many of us couldn't or didn't. As my comrade said earlier, a lot of our parents had to stop going to school to provide for us. And even when those things were overcome, and then you realize what the real contradiction was to why your people are living in the plight that they're living in, then you're made to seem like, okay, well, you're crazy, or does it, you know, what you're doing is not productive, and those types of things. But that shame, I mean, that, you know, we don't even fully have the full grasp on why we feel that shame. But the shame really should be put on the oppressor in the first place, because that's something that's been robbed of us.
Exactly. And real quick, the only thing I wanted to add before we move on to chapter 8, you know, just really unite with what you have to say, Comrade Nyah, and just to really put it into context. You know, when you think about this whole contradiction of, you know, African people, you know, not being able to read, of it being actual, like Comrade Nyah said, like a law that African people in this country were not able to read, could not be taught to read, and things of that nature. But when you even go back before that, just understanding that we, a people stolen from our continent, our languages, you know, our culture ripped from our mouths, then we're brought here, and then we're forced, you know, how to speak English and all of these different languages that are foreign to us. And then they set up a system to tell you that your ass is fucking stupid because you can't read the language that has been forced upon you. Well, that you can't function with all of these different things that have been stolen from you. And so now we're judged against this system because we can't read the white man's English. Or we can't succeed in the white man's educational system and things of that nature. When it's all motherfucking bullshit. It's bullshit. It is bullshit.
Well,
and the fact that African people, colonized people, are illiterate in the first place, like my comrade said, can be contributed back to the oppressor, to us being colonized and oppressed.
There is something that we have not gotten to yet, and I'm hoping that somewhere down the line we will read this book. But it's very relevant to what we're discussing right here. But Amos Wilson really dives so deep into IQ. We get so caught up in IQ and whether or not, you know, if you have an IQ of this, like they said that Huey Newton had an IQ of 74. When this man, there's no way this man was bordering intellectual excellence. Yeah. And Amos Wilson really talks in his studies and his literature about what IQ what it actually measures, and the fact that the things that intelligence actually measures how well you're able to adapt to your environment that you have to live in. Right. It's something that's really relevant because of the way that we are forced to function and not being given the basic things that we need to survive, which you had touched on. And when you said that, I was like, wow, Amos Wilson was talking about that. We've got to read that book at some point because it's so relevant, but it's very relevant to what we're talking about now.
We can get it on the agenda. But let's read some of these comments real quick. Black Power, Conrad, DP. We have Yolunda. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, sister, who says, school is for you to be a good employee, not to be rich. College as well. It doesn't. Most people graduate, go work for someone else.
Absolutely.
That's why it's a trap. It's this
rich.
big old game. It's just a game. She says, teach your kids economic. It teach you how to be rich. We have, Amy, who's telling people to follow this page. Black Power, thank you, Amy. Black Power, Kimya. Black Power, Caro. Christopher says, never enough. White imperialism, see us all the same. Hashtag read that back. Oh, we had the same hashtag read that back. It seems to me that nothing is more painful than a sense of shame that overwhelms you and afflicts the soul. Page 54. It seems Huey felt left out from his own family, not being able to share and engage and comprehending when reading. And he does speak to how his mother and his father, they love to read and things of that nature. And you can just understand like the isolation that he could have felt at this time. Right. And so many of our brothers and sisters feel, at this time because they can't read, Let's see what else. Gigi says, Black Power, self-critical. I'm late. I'm meeting and organizing with Crow in regards to the logistics for Black Hammer Community Garden. Ooh. Okay, community garden, Black Power.
Excuse.
Okay, that's excuse, comrade.
Yeah.
That's excuse. You get
Black
a pass.
Power.
And comrade Caro says we need to take responsibility for ourselves where we're lacking.
So I get it in a sense of self-determination.
Yeah.
But we also need to recognize the contradiction, again, that's been placed. And it's not an easy contradiction to overcome either. Not saying that we shouldn't try to build for ourselves, but we have to also recognize there are certain obstacles that are placed in our way so that we won't do that.
And I would like to think of taking responsibility for ourselves as meaning we have a responsibility to politically educate our brothers and sisters and bring them into revolutionary organization. That's how we can take responsibility for ourselves. It's just this attitude that, African people can never, we're always pulling each other down. We're always doing all of these different types of things to, stifle us, I guess, from living the American dream and, taking true responsibility for yourself as an African person is to get politically educated, to join a revolutionary organization. And that's all I can say to that right now at the moment. But Black Power, comrade Jordan. So we're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 8.
Make sure y'all like and share if you haven't already. Like and share it to all your groups.
Yes. Do that.
And donate to BH Book Club. $, BH Book Club.
Look at you reminding me, girl. Hold on, y'all. Before we go on to chapter 8, the Revolutionary Book Club does serve as a fundraiser for the Black Hammer organization. So we definitely invite you to go to CashApp. As Comrade Nyah says, you can donate at BH Book Club. $5 to $10 to $20, how many other dollars you want to donate. $3, $2, $1. We'll take it. You can also support the Black Hammer organization by going to gofundme.com/blackhammerorg, or you can visit blackhammer.org and donate through that way as well to keep the Revolutionary Book Club coming on live, to finance, to help build this community garden that Comrade Gigi just dropped on us, girl, that we had no idea about, but it's lit. So again, BH Book Club for Cash App, and go to gofundme.com/blackhammerorg, or go to blackhammer.org and donate through there. Okay, so chapter 8. in chapter 8, you know, Comrade Huey is basically speaking to the confusion that he's facing right now in his inner life post graduating from high school. And he just says that, you know, this confusion pretty much lasted until he was able to form the Black Panther Party with Bobby Seals. And, you know, I believe all of us have this experience, you know, those of us who have chosen to join, you know, revolutionary life, where we've had to basically decolonize all of these different, and still, you know, working in that process, struggling to overturn, you know, these contradictions that, you know, white power has placed inside of us. And I believe that's a large chunk of what Comrade Huey is speaking about in chapter 8. And, you know, just another example of, you know, letting old beliefs go, you know, like such as religion. And then when you let these things go, it's like this hole, this void within you that you don't have nothing else to fill with, you know, at that moment, because everything that you're comfortable with, everything that you're familiar with, which is basically white power, you know, is, you have nothing tethering that to you anymore. So there you feel like you're just floating, you know, around in like this ideological purgatory or something, you know, something of that nature. And Comrade Huey just speaks about, you know, how hard that was for him at that moment. And what he uses as an example, you know, that he even spoke to earlier within the book, is just the toil and the hard work that his father, you know, was going through. And, you know, how all of us are fed this whole notion that if we work hard, just work hard, just work hard, just work hard, just work hard. That's all you gotta do now, is just work hard, girl.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yes, just work and everything is gonna be okay. But we know that's the goddamn lie, because some of them, the most hardest working people come from colonizing African communities. You're talking about mothers, fathers working 2, 3, 4 jobs at a time to sustain themselves, their families, and we can never seem to get ahead.
And then think about how much time that takes away from your children, and then they have the nerve to talk about why our kids have nobody at home with them to raise them. Well, it's because you working 2, 3 jobs at a time, trying to survive, keep your head above water.
And then just to think about, you know, like the African woman who basically raised all of white nationalist America, and baby, that could, I mean, all of that can be proven. White women, they didn't start raising their children till recently. White women did not start raising their children until recently.
Is they raising them though? Because they raising them to go shoot up school. Sorry.
Cause the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth. But white women didn't start raising their children until recently. And here it is, African women, African fathers, colonized women, colonized men have to leave their children at home for hours at a time to go work a job that's basically pretty much paying them nothing, pennies, you know, only to be living from paycheck to paycheck. And, you know, Comrade Huey just states that, you know, at this point, and all of us at one point, you know, we're trying to avoid this same fate that we see our people, see our parents, our family members struggling in. But ultimately, when you assess reality, you see that it's inevitable for us to go down that same road as long as colonialism, as long as white imperialism is still intact. This is the merry-go-round that African and colonized people continuously go on. So he even talks about joining a monastery just so he can place himself in isolation to ponder these different questions, you know, to figure all of this shit out that you as an African person would have to consider becoming a joining a monastery just so you can understand why in the hell your father is doing all of this back-breaking work, but it just doesn't seem that you can get ahead, that your family can survive.
Right.
So he also speaks about Sonny Man, who is his brother. Pretty much is a hustler on the streets, you know, slanging that, you know. And you know, he speaks about this illusion of freedom that Sonny Man has, you know, and even the fact that his brother can rebel against the authorities, but still at the same time, he's still, I guess you could say, beholden to the oppressor, that you can only, it's to an extent that you can have a disregard for the law, but you understand that if you get too out of line, then it's a wrap. And, you know, he speaks about how that illusion of freedom is appealing to him. And, you know, that's how, you know, a lot of our young brothers and sisters end up getting involved in the illegal drug economy because it is so attractive. It does look so attractive. And then how white power is so motherfucking sick and vile and just absolutely disgusting, because you begin to think that you're getting over on white power, that you're getting over on white imperialism, without understanding that if it wasn't for white power, if it wasn't for white imperialism, we wouldn't be having to participate in the illegal drug economy, because they put the crack there, they put the heroin there, they put the drugs in the community. And then again, we think that we're getting over on them because we're participating in all this illegal stuff. Fuck the pigs and all. Still fuck the pigs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But still, at the same time, we're poisoning our communities, you know, through these means. But then, still at the same time, you can't support your family working at McDonald's. You can't support your family working at a gas station and all of these different things. And then you can't deny the fact that selling drugs is easy as hell and it's simple as hell. Tax-free. You don't have to worry about nothing, you know, other than, you know, other brothers who might have a problem with you being on the block. But the money is instantly. Your baby need Pampers, you need a phone bill paid, you need groceries, that money is coming instantly. So it's no question why a brother would decide to sell crack or to sell marijuana and different things of that nature. Because without it, what economic development does the African community have other than going to work for McDonald's? And that's not even speaking to, you know, all of these petty merchants who have the dry cleaners, the gas stations, and all of these different things who are hostile to our people and our communities and won't even hire you, but they'll let your drunk uncle sweep up the parking lot so he can get a beer and a pack of cigarettes.
Disgusting.
It's disgusting. And this is what our people are subject to. This is what we're subject to. This is what colonialism does. This is what white imperialism does. I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta blow my nose real quick. But come
well, just yes.
I'm gonna step off camera real quick.
It's all of these things. Excuse me. We dealing with allergies here. Excuse me. All these things that my comrade just mentioned is a reality that we're dealing with even today. The same things that we were dealing with then. And what he had mentioned, like, you know, why these brothers and some sisters go into this economy. But then it's like, not only that, you start taking larger risks. And once the pigs get you, or if they decide to get you, they're gonna throw you away and they're gonna lock away the key. I mean, they're gonna throw away the key. You gone. We've seen it happen all too often.
And that's how they're able to fund the prison system.
It's a business.
It's definitely a business.
And how many people do we know that have spent years behind bars, and they're still there rotting away, and they have children they're never going to see again. If they see them again, it's going to be in a setting like that, and it's not fair. It's so wrong on so many levels. But again, I don't blame. It is a contradiction, and I'm not saying that it isn't something that, because the poisoning of our community is a huge contradiction, a huge one. But the reason why it even would cross somebody's mind is a means of survival.
And the most simplest solution is to provide political education to these brothers and sisters to help them understand the contradiction of participating in the illegal drug economy, what it is doing to our people, how it even came into existence, and win them to understanding that, so they can move away from that, and we can create true economic development within our communities. Economic development that is, I'll say healthy, I guess, for lack of a better term, for our people.
Self-sustaining. The building of things like community gardens so that we can feed our people. If we could create jobs and within our own communities. Those types of things are the things that we want to build in our communities. Not, assisting with poisoning our mothers, our fathers, and just killing them, or participating in killing them along with the system, being an accomplice to what the system is doing to our people.
Black power. All right, y'all, so we're going to go ahead. Well, real quickly, before we get into the hashtag read that back part for chapter 8, I wanted to speak to the last point that I had here. All of this confusion that Comrade Huey is facing right now in chapter 8 comes to a head in the growth of his beard. It comes to a point to, he's going through all of these different things within his mind about questioning all of these different things, his religion, all of these traditional things that, we as African and colonized people hold on to, to keep us sane. He felt that, growing his beard was separating himself from that. And it got to a point to where his parents, at this point saw him growing a beard, you were bohemian and different things like that of that nature, and they didn't want to be associated with it. So it came to a point to where his father demanded that he even confronted him and was like, either you got to cut your beard right now or you got to get out of the house. And of course Huey said no, but he moved out. But he also just closes the chapter by saying, him and his father were still able to work things out, and that they kept a room in the house for him until he went to prison in 1968. Right. And, we see our African children, our colonized children, rebelling in different ways. And I believe that we can directly contribute it to the same things that Huey P. Newton is going through, because there's no way in your human mind that you can reconcile these ideals that if you work hard, you're going to be successful. But when, as a colonized and an African person, you see all of these you're surrounded by hardworking people, but they're not going anywhere. And actually, the conditions continue to get worse. So how are you supposed to reconcile that within yourself? You see your mother, you see your father doing all this back-breaking work, but shit is only getting worse. It's only getting worse. And then you have to deal with these feelings of resentment and anger because you're trying to understand, why isn't my parents, being able to, have to work as much as they do? All of these different conflicting things within your mind. So, of course, they're going to rebel. Of course, they're going to act out in different ways. So, Yeah, okay, so now we can move on to our hashtag read that back. So please put your hashtag read that back parts in the comments so we can go ahead and discuss them. And my hashtag read that back part comes on page 56, and this is where Huey is talking about his father's struggle. And it says, my father's struggle with bills was common in many of the families of my comrades. See, it's not just unique to Huey, it's just not unique to us. Like, all colonized, all African people can identify with what comrade Huey is speaking to. He had worked hard all his life only to sink more deeply in debt. It seemed that no matter how hard he worked and sacrificed for his family, it led to more work. Things never became easier. I began to ask why this had happened to us and to everybody around us. Why could my father never get out of debt? If hard work brought success, why did we not see more success in the community? The people were certainly working hard. It seemed we were predestined to endless toil. We poor people never reached the point of having time to pursue the things we wanted. We had neither leisure time nor material goods. Not only did I want to know why this was so, I wanted to avoid a similar fate.
That doesn't sound like we're free.
No, not at all. Not at all. You have a hashtag read that back?
I do. My hashtag read that back comes from page 58 going into 59, where he was talking about his parents and the relationship he had with them, going into the beard and cutting it off. He said, I never expressed these feelings to my parents, where he was talking about the questions that he was having and why these things were happening. I had such respect and admiration for my father, who had done so much for us, that I could not openly question his life. He would not have understood what I was going through. I was grateful, I was appreciative, and I loved and admired him, but I had questions not easily answered. And I can totally relate to feeling that, my father and, my mother, of course, we were raised Baptist, and, I was raised Baptist. I once was a Baptist. And then not even just that, but just even the things that you're going through. Every answer that I would get when something was tragically wrong or really wrong was, well, you just need to pray about it.
Pray.
You just need to pray about it. And it was infuriating at times. I mean, it got to be where I was like, I don't even want to talk to anybody about it. But I can understand the conflict of loving your parents, and they love you. They love you, and they want what's best for you. They want you to be safe. They don't want you to get in trouble. And even now, my father knows the things that I do and the things that I talk about and the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing. But every time I'm telling him, I'm about to go out and we're about to do some outreach, he calls me Keith. He'll be like, Keith, just be careful. Just be careful, because I know what y'all trying to do, but you just got to be careful, babe. And it's hard, because it's like, I know my dad understands what I'm doing, but he doesn't always agree. And he sometimes feels like, I might be asking for trouble, or that we're asking for trouble. And it's, no, this is a fight for freedom. But, even at the time that Huey did this, and when he cut off the beard, I had to look up the Bohemian thing, because I wasn't really sure what he meant by that. But it just basically means it's somebody who's kind of anti-establishment, and they're rebelling. And his parents didn't really want that look for him, because, it meant trouble, you know. And so, there are things that I did at the time that I felt like I was rebelling. I left home before I graduated high school, because me and my mom were just...
What?
Yeah, we were going to fight. And I love my mom, but we were going to fight. And so, but it was just, there were things then that I didn't understand what it was I was rebelling against, and it wasn't even necessarily her as much, it was...
White power.
Yeah.
Yeah, white power.
So yeah, that was my read that back.
All right, y'all. So let's look at some of these comments real quick. We had some new people join. Let's see. Christopher says, hashtag read that back. Operating through someone else's power, you are not free if you have to reject part of yourself. That's true.
Power.
Black power, Christopher. We have Comrade Muganga. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Who says, thanks for the conversations. Black Power, brother. Black Power, Muhammadu. Black Power, Chakonde. Black Power, Robert. And we have Tion. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Who says, I was born in Scotland. My father is from Florida and my mother is Scottish. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Revolutionary
Black Power.
Book Club. Black Power. All right, y'all. So we're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 9. And in chapter 9, Huey, in chapter 8, we find out that he does graduate from high school, and so now he has enrolled in Oakland City College. And, we still have this understanding that at this point in his life, Huey is still working to prove, all of the naysayers wrong, namely his white school teachers, who have told him that he's not college material, that he wouldn't be able to succeed and, things of that nature. So he enrolls in Oakland City College, which is a community college, and he speaks about how it's, surrounded by the black community. And that's one thing, I mean, even still knowing what I know now, if I knew it back then, I probably... I don't know. I probably would have still went, but I would have came out with another understanding that, going to college, that I would have had to take these skills back to my community.
Right.
I would have had to take them back to my community.
Same here.
But the only thing I can say about my college experience is that I enjoyed going to a historically black college because I was just surrounded by so many other beautiful ass black people. It was I can't front on that. Now that, I mean, it just really was it was a great experience. Now this so-called debt that I'm in now because of it, fuck that shit. But just being able to be surrounded by so many beautiful brothers and sisters, it was really an experience that I couldn't change for the world. So he's now in Oakland City College. He does talk about still, running the block with his homeboys and stuff like that. And, even how he had to sustain himself by, committing petty crimes, breaking into houses, breaking into cars and things of that nature. And he also talks about, coming across all of these different organizations on campus. And I can say that, like with HBCUs and things like that, there are like a different bunch of organizations that you can partake in. And he, says that how looking at these different organizations kind of led him in a new direction. And namely, he speaks about meeting Richard Thorne, which was like one of his first friends that he made at Oakland City College. And he makes the point to say that, Richard was this tall and very dark, African man who prior to the, the so-called black cultural revolution was already rocking afros, dashikis, and things of that nature. And he even makes the comment that, seeing Richard struck like this feeling of awe and, like fear in people that he would come around, because here it is, you have this African man who is embracing his natural African self, and even our people at that point didn't really know how to internalize that, didn't know how to, grapple with that. So, he talks about, being in a dorm, with all these other African brothers, and, how all of them are just searching. And reading that just made me think that, African people, colonized people, we're always searching, but we don't realize that we're searching for our liberation. We're searching for our freedom, to be free of colonialism, to be free of white imperialism. But you don't hear no white person searching. The only thing you hear about them searching is for like the next mansion or something that they're going to get to buy. Because, I mean, even before birth, that white child is already guaranteed some type of future where he or she doesn't have to worry about searching worry about, you know, how they're going to take care of, you know, care of themselves, excuse me. But African people and colonized people, we're always searching. So he talks about that. And one point, which in the chapter was very interesting to me, is how he comments on Richard's take on intimate human relations, as he says it. And to me, I unite with what Brother Richard is putting down, and I want to read that real quickly. And child, I feel like this can be a whole conversation in itself.
It can.
So I'm gonna just read it, you know. But he says, Richard had a theory about intimate human relations. He saw non-possessive love as pure love, the only love, and possessive love as a mockery of pure love. Non-possessive love did not enslave or constrain the love object of love. Let me read that again. Non-possessive love did not enslave or constrain the love object. Richard was critical of what he called bourgeois love relationships, of the marriage system and the requirements of the marriage partners to each other, i.e. sex with one partner, jealousy, limits upon mobility, well-defined roles based upon sex. He felt that people should not be like cars or houses. No man should own a wife, nor should a wife own a husband, because ownership is predicated, okay, upon control, fences, barriers, constraints, and psychological tyranny. Non-possessive love is based upon shared experiences and friendship. It is the kind of love we have for our bodies, for our thumb or foot. We love ourselves, our bodies, but we do not want to enslave any parts of ourselves. And I think that's spot on. I really think that's spot on, especially in terms of, you know, what is a bourgeois love relationship, such as marriage and, you know, the requirements of marriage partners. When you understand that, you know, marriage, you know, how it has been impressed upon us by, you know, white imperialism, and just seeing, you know, the history of marriage in like feudal society and things of that nature. When we as African and colonized people, we had a whole different concept of what marriage meant for us. You know, in some traditional African, you know, communities where you had the groom who would go spend weeks at a time or months at a time with the bride's family, so they could get to know each other, and the bride would do vice versa. You know, but then when you look at the constructs of feudal society, where basically the woman became the property of the man, that she could not own any possessions or anything else of that nature, you know, I mean, it's a direct, you know, I guess you could say correlation of what capitalism is. You know, versus African people, where it was a communal process, so much so that even if you and your fiance, you know, weren't getting along, it was up to the community, it was up to the elders, to the friends and the families to make the determination if this relationship was a good fit for the couple. And like I said, it could be a whole nother conversation, so we're gonna just cut it right there. But it's deep. It's deep. It's really deep. Black Power, Erica. So he also speaks about, let's see, what else does he speak about? Okay, so how he's still questioning, you know, he has all of these questions even while he's still in college, and how these, you know, these questions lead to this outrageous behavior. And, you know, being able to identify the contradictions that he sees within the community, but how do you avoid, you know, how do you avoid embracing your oppressor, but then at the same time knowing all of these contradictions exist, you know, within the society? So here it is, he's faced with that, and then he speaks about becoming a member of Phi Beta Sigma, and even within the organization, he's voicing all of these concerns about, you know, the plight of African people. But the organization, you know, Phi Beta Sigma, and, you know, like Greek organizations that we see, fraternities, mainly at HBCUs and public white schools or whatever. But how these organizations, these fraternities aren't equipped to, take on these questions. And I would like to think that at some point in time, some of these organizations may have had, some type of radical character. But now, like, the experience at HBCUs, I mean, they're just like organizations for more petty, like churning out more petty bourgeoisie aspiring Africans. And so at this point, he's told about Donald Warren, who's at the Berkeley College of the University of California, who's talking all of this Black Power stuff.
Donald Warren.
Girl.
I couldn't wait to get into this chapter.
So after he says he was a member of Phi Beta Sigma for some time, but then he eventually left, and again he's instructed to go seek out Donald Warren, who we find out is nothing but a charlatan, a sellout, who's this lawyer who's basically using the labor of African people to forward his own agenda. And I believe Comrade Huey speaks to, this event where they meet at let me back up first, because he speaks about Maurice Dawson, who's pretty much the right-hand man to Donald Warren. And upon their first meeting, he just speaks about the arrogance that is displayed by Maurice Dawson, who has this whole attitude, such as, like, because he is this radical person that he's above,
condescending.
Very condescending towards Comrade Huey, because here it is, Comrade Huey is on this journey to become, more politically aware, but then you have Maurice Dawson, who is this hostile force, who is pretty much, like Comrade Nyah says, being condescending towards Huey P. Newton because he isn't as politically as advanced. But even then we see that this whole political advancement that Maurice Dawson has is bullshit. It's pretty much worth nothing.
Because what is an African American exactly?
And then I believe the association is called the Afro-American Association. So the contradiction already lies within the name, as we see with African descendants of slavery. But we ain't gonna go there right now. We're not gonna go there right now. But and he speaks about how Donald Warren, again, is this spineless, just sellout Negro, who at this they pretty much have this city council meeting where there is a complaint that is written up about the Afro-American Association, and Donald is supposed to be going there to confront the city council, and they are placed on the agenda and things of that nature, but they're then moved to the end of the agenda, and then even at the end of the meeting, they're still not allowed to speak because the city council pretty much don't want to hear anything that they have to say. So now you have Donald Warren, who comes up and he's speaking, but he's basically pleading to city council to make some type of concessions. And Comrade Huey points out the contradiction behind, of how behind closed doors Donald Warren can talk about, the greatness of African people, but when he's out in public, he's talking down on African people. He's talking about how lazy we are and how we need to do this and how we need to do that, and basically putting the onus on us as, colonized African people.
Yeah, I had that whole page highlighted because I was just so disgusted, and I can understand why Huey felt the way that he did, because you go in there because your organization gets some derogatory remarks.
Cameron, we don't do hey y'all, we do Black Power.
Black
I don't
Power,
know what
Cameron know better.
Right.
Cameron know better.
I gotta blow my nose real quick.
But so this whole event where they're going in, they're going to the city council because they got derogatory remarks made about them, and then towards the end, basically, begging to get their point out. Then this lawyer basically comes up and said, Warden comes up and says, well, we just want to do better ourselves and we want to clean ourselves up, massa, all that stuff like that. That's basically what he did. And it was really disgusting. I was just like, And when he said that he became disillusioned to the point where he left the organization, I can understand that. And he said his family had already started to see that he felt
that
like
Don wasn't worth shit.
He really wasn't about shit. He wasn't about the community. All he wanted to do was build up his practice. I think he said he wanted to get Barry Goldwater's daughter to donate money to his little sister's sewing shop. So these are the things. You have people out in the community that want to build themselves up and do things for them while talking Black Power this and all this stuff like that, and they're really not about the community at all. They could really give a fuck about what the people are actually going through. And I think that was a huge there are people out there that exist today. I could list names.
It's organizations that exist today.
Yes. I could list them, but I won't. I'll remain behaved. But like something that he says down here, he said, the disillusion, I left the organization, but not before I had gotten out of it. For one thing, I've begun to learn about the Black past. But I... Chapter
9, comrade.
Chapter 9.
Well, he was... Cameron was acting which chapter this was.
Oh, yeah, Chapter 9, yes. And he said he was obviously interested in building up the law practice and routinely began street meetings by saying he did not have to be there. Like, he didn't want to be there for the meetings that were being organized. A lot of people went for him for legal services. Then he would overcharge them for the services. So it's like, how are you going to be a Black attorney in your community and you charging them prices they can't even afford? That doesn't make any sense. And then there's another, when you are an attorney or any type of professional, when you really are about your community, you're going to do something called pro bono work, where you're going to offer services to your community at either a sliding scale, or you're going to do it for free if they really cannot afford it. This Negro had no intentions on doing that. He wanted to exploit his community and put him and his family in a better position while leaving the rest of the community basically to languish in their oppression. And that's disgusting to me. That's what other organizations do we know?
Building up individuals and all of that other type of shit. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to the hashtag read that back portions for chapter 9. So please go ahead and put that right there in the comments. So my hashtag read that back part comes where, Comrade Huey is speaking about meeting Maurice and what that experience was like. Yeah. So he says, Maurice taught me a lesson that I try to apply to the Black Panther Party today. I dissuade party members from putting people down who do not understand. Even people who are unenlightened and seemingly bourgeois should be answered in a polite way. Things should be explained to them as fully as possible. I was turned off by a person who did not want to talk to me because I was not important enough. Maurice just wanted to preach to the converted who already agreed with him. I tried to be cordial because that way you win people over. You cannot win them over by drawing the line of demarcation, saying that you're on this side and I'm on the other. That shows a lack of consciousness. After the Black Panther Party was formed, sorry about that, y'all. A call was coming through. But, dang, where was I? I could not understand why people were blind to what I saw so clearly. Then I realized that their understanding had to be developed. Yes. Black power. So even if you have access to revolutionary theory, to all of this revolutionary ideology, it does not really mean shit if you can't help other African brothers and sisters, other colonized people come to that same understanding. It's not going to work. And that's like the crux of bringing African and colonized people into revolutionary organization. And if you can't reach them, politically from where they're at, like meeting them at their political door, then there's no purpose of you organizing, because you're not going to be able to win. Yeah, you're not going to be able to reach them.
Absolutely.
And we understand that, you know, you come into revolutionary life carrying all of this colonial baggage, all of these different colonial ideas, you know, that even us as revolutionaries are still struggling to overturn within ourselves. But you have to think that African people are battling a 600-year or longer struggle against all of these different contradictions that have been imposed upon us. And, you know, you're not going to be able to reach, you know, African brothers and sisters, colonized people in just one conversation. It's a process of winning them to understand and, you know, exactly what we're faced with. Black power.
Black power. And I just want to point out that I've struggled with that myself. Like, it's, you know, having been in the revolutionary, just the trajectory of doing this, you do get frustrated sometimes talking to people that some truly just don't have the understanding. They want the understanding. And I will get frustrated, like, how could you believe that? But then reading this very much reminded me that you have to meet people where they're at. Because some people do want to come in and they're more so being condescending, like, why are y'all doing that? What is that about? Why don't you, you know, ADO, you know, stuff like that.
Foolishness. Knowing
that they're coming in to provoke you. But there are people who truly do want to know more about why, you know, okay, yeah, my liberation is this. And I've actually seen that happen. So yes, you do have to remain poised. You have to remain polite, and you have to understand that you, being in a position and having the knowledge that you have, are willing to share that with somebody else. And it's going to take a while to get somebody to the point where you are now.
And even what also makes it easier. Yes, pack your patience, most definitely. But what also makes it easier is just the simple understanding that it's not even possible for you to even think that you can win each and every single African brother and sister that you come to, because you just simply can't. And, you know, to be perfectly honest, you know, all of our brothers and sisters aren't really built for revolutionary life. But that still doesn't mean that we don't fight for them, you know, still, that we don't organize for them still.
Absolutely.
And we do understand that there are openly hostile, you know, brothers and sisters who don't want to be connected to revolutionary theory and all of that kind of stuff like that. And that's fine. But we understand that we still have to win who we can win. And that's what it is. You win who you can win, and you just keep the struggle going. Black power.
Black power. And I mean, this chapter was so packed full of everything. Like, one other thing I wanted to point out was that he said that Warden never spoke of the link between capitalism, exploitation, and racism, and he goes into that. But something else I thought was very interesting was that another member of the Afro-American Association was Ron Everett, who I guess we know today is Ron Karenga, and I think he formed the Kwanzaa celebration. And he went, it says here on page 66, he went from the association to Watts in Los Angeles, where he established his own cultural nationalist group, US, which eventually became a cult. He called himself Karenga, the original. Later, the Black Panthers had some bitter confrontations with US or us, and they killed two of our finest comrades. And it was documented that Ron Karenga was tied in with the FBI, I believe it was. And they conspired against our Los Angeles party organizers. I mean, and when I learned about that, I was just so, because I was celebrating Kwanzaa at the time, and I was just like, I can't, and so all of this comes out, even, Huey Newton talked about Ron Karenga and his betrayal really to the people. So, and he was part of that organization. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Alrighty, so we have Comrade Histopher. Why I'm only seeing Comrade Histopher with his hashtag read that back? Where everybody else at?
This morning, y'all still sleepy?
Comrade Histopher says hashtag read that back. If we are right in the dialectics, let's see. If we are right in the dialectics of the situation, our position will prevail. Black power.
Black power.
And Comrade Cameron so late talking about something. Hey y'all, I was watching the Wu-Tang joint. I'm sorry I'm late. Comrade, listen. Listen. we love you too. Look, Yolanda. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Comrade Cameron says Karinga is a hoe.
He is.
Junior Arias, can you say block? Block.
Yeah. Okay, he was trolling. But now you're not.
Oh, come through, Comrade Kimya. Comrade Kimya says, hashtag read that back. You see me touching it, right, Comrade?
I do. He was right on it.
Right. Hashtag read that back. The questions I asked during this period were so disturbing that I acted outrageously to drive them away. I was looking for something more tangible with which to identify. And we can see that in a lot of our young African brothers and sisters right now at this moment. Black power. All right, y'all. So we're going to move on to our last chapter, which is chapter 10 for today's session. In chapter 10, Comrade Huey is speaking about basically how life is opening up for him at this moment. He's pretty much, he's still attending Oakland College, Oakley City College, but he still has all of these different, conflicting things going on within his mind. You have him talking about, trying to relate to Donald Warren in the fake ass programs that he had coming on, trying to stay close to, the brothers that he was dealing with on the block, and also attending college at the same time as well too. And he still, is talking about working to prove white power wrong. That's just such an insane. It's insanity for African people to have to struggle to prove to white power, to the oppressor, that we're worthy of human dignity. That's an insane struggle to engage in. It's just really an insane struggle to, engage in. So he speaks about that. He also speaks about, his favorite subjects in college, and philosophy being one of them. And he also speaks about, the formation of the Black Panther Party's ideology and just the different, concepts and things that he was experimenting with. And I want to read this part real quick, where he talks about becoming an existentialist.
I have trouble saying that too, yeah.
Okay. So he says, from then on, I began to engage friends in existentialist discussions. If a brother was hungry, I would say that it's all the same whether you're hungry or full, whether you're cold or warm. It's all the same. They really thought I was crazy. Then I began living like an existentialist, hitchhiking to Los Angeles and back, walking into the class dirty, without shoes, and sometimes soaked to the skin from the rain. It was all the same to me. One way or another, I kept my reputation going. All the time I was on the streets, I'd read
Ecclesiastes, yeah.
At least once a month, until I was sentenced to the penitentiary, where they refused me any reading material. And just reading this part, it just made me think of, all of the different things that African people and colonized people do or go through to try to grapple with our colonized existence. We go through trying out different spiritualities. We try, different lifestyles and all of these different things to answer this question of colonialism within ourselves, versus white people who might experiment with Buddhism one week, then they're practicing, atheism the next week. And just all of these different things. But you have to understand that it's a different process, where African people, we're trying out these things to cope with our reality, versus white people who are trying these different things because they just want to get a kick out of it and exploit, the different things that African and colonized people have used traditionally to deal with our oppression. So these things are not, it's not coming from the same place. And Cameron says it good right here in this comment, trauma-based coping mechanisms. So here it is, we have Comrade Huey who's coming to class wet, dirty, you know, hitchhiking, all of these different things because he can't figure out how the hell why am I colonized? Why am I going through all of these different contradictions? And we see that with our African people. And you know, my grandmother is very religious. She's a very religious woman. And she just went through a point to where she read this. Have you ever heard of this book called The Secret? So it's this book written by a white woman. And the whole secret is based upon this notion that the laws of attraction. So basically, if you can picture it, so say you want $1 million, right? And you can picture yourself in your mind having $1 million. All you have to do is picture that each and every single day.
And it's going to happen.
And it's going to happen.
Oh.
So much so to the point that she even had me reading the book, y'all. And in one of the chapters, you have this white man who drew a leaf on a piece of paper. And because of the laws of attraction, he just so happened to be walking down the sidewalk and found the same leaf that he drew on a piece of paper on the sidewalk.
Oh. Like there's not 1,000 leaves that could look like that?
But, I mean, that's just another example of how African people are trying to find our answers, trying to find the answers to how the fuck can shit be so terrible for us? How can this be our reality? So, yeah, he speaks about that. And, you know, even at this point, he's still... you know, working on the block to sustain himself and things of that nature. And he also, you know, makes the comment upon how, you know, reading and studying is what led him to become a socialist. And how he would speak to, you know, he would speak to these brothers and sisters about the different solutions that he would think that he thought that would, you know, help the African community, help the colonized community, and how they would directly respond to him in this condescending way, like, oh, that's socialism. Like, something was wrong with socialism. And then again, communism, and how we feel, even down to our understandings about communism, has been skewed by white imperialism, by white power, and things of that nature. Because you can even, like, I mean, speaking to some of our grandparents, you know, how they had this whole Red Scare and we got to fight the commies, we got to get away from all of the commies and different things of that nature. Just that whole rhetoric, you know, again, that has been pushed by white power to where African people don't even want to understand what communism is. We don't want to understand what collectivism is. But when you go back to these diaries that we see by the conquistadors, you know, who came to colonize the Americas, that went to Africa to enslave African people, when you read those journals, they speak about how you see the wealth of Africa, the wealth of the Americas being shared amongst the indigenous people of the Americas, being shared amongst the African people within Africa, because that stuff originated with us. Communism, collectivism, that's not foreign to African people. That's not foreign to us. That's not foreign to us. So he speaks about that, and he also speaks about being able to hear Malcolm X speak for the first time, which was very powerful for him as well too. And I believe that is where my well, before we go into the hashtag read that back part, is there anything you wanted to comment on, Comrade?
Well, I wanted to say that
I gotta blow my nose again.
Asada actually mentioned that too in her autobiography, and I'm just trying to point out some parallels here because she had mentioned the you know, what she knew very little about communism, like many of us do. Because, you know, when you're born into a capitalist society, all you know is the way that you're born into and what seems normal, what doesn't seem normal. And so she mentioned how, you know, before she had to study communism because before it was so demonized that, you know, she just said, well, communism is bad. And so, when he talked about that, and then also just really quickly, it just sounds to me like when he went through the and I'm gonna struggle saying this too, existentialist phase. You know that to me just, you know, you get what little I've studied about that theory is just the fact that you are here, and why are you here, and you question why you're here, and if this is how, then you're pointing that, or you're pulling from why your experience is what it is, and then it's just like, well, if I'm poor and I'm hungry, it really must not make any difference because I'm still here, and then I just exist, and this just must be how it is, and it's kind of like you're detaching yourself from any type of emotional stance on anything as a way to cope.
Exactly.
And so that was really interesting that he found that, as a coping mechanism to his conditions.
Black power. So I think we can move on to the hashtag read that back part. And my hashtag read that back part comes on chapter 71. Page 71. Where Comrade Huey speaks about hearing Malcolm X speak for the first time. And he says, I first heard Malcolm X speak at McClellan's High School in Oakland when he attended a conference sponsored by the Afro-American Association on the mind of the ghetto. Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, was with Malcolm, and he told about his conversion to Islam. He was not yet the heavyweight champion. Malcolm impressed me with his logic and with his disciplined and dedicated mind. Here was a man who combined the world of the streets and the world of the scholar, a man so widely read he could give better lectures and cite more evidence than many college professors. He was also practical. Dressed in the loose-fitting style of a strong prison man, he knew what the street brothers were like, and he knew what had to be done to reach them. Malcolm had a program, armed defense when attacked, and reaching the people with ideas and programs that speak to their conditions. At the same time, he identified the causes of their conditions instead of blaming the people. And I mean, like, any revolutionary organization, I believe, can be judged, by that stance. Because first, you definitely have to think about armed defense, and you have to think about reaching our people with ideas and programs that speak directly to our conditions. Because you go to a community that's riddled by gentrification, but you want to speak about voting rights and getting people out to vote. That's not speaking to the people's contradictions. That's not speaking to the conditions that they're facing right now. And the organizing that you're saying that you're doing is not going to be successful. It's not going to be successful. But just reading about how Malcolm was able to identify with the street brothers and still, have this disciplined and, principled manner about himself when, speaking to the people about our conditions and things of that nature. That's something, that's very admirable and to be, emulated by all comrades, who are struggling for the liberation of colonized and African people. Black power.
So my read that back comes from page 70 when we kind of already talked a little bit about it, but just his conversion from a black nationalist to a socialist, and what cemented that. And it says here on page 70, my conversion was complete when I read the 4 volumes of Mao Zedong. I don't know if I'm saying that right. To learn more about the Chinese Revolution. It was my life plus independent reading that made me a socialist, nothing else. And then he also became convinced of the benefits of collectivism and a collectivist ideology. I also saw the link between racism and the economics of capitalism. Although despite the link, I recognized that it was necessary to separate the concepts in analyzing the general situation. I could go on into that, but I just really appreciate his conversion to that, and then just pulling in doctrines, literature that really supports the reason why we're socialists. Because I know it may seem trendy to be like, oh, we're socialists today, whereas tomorrow it may be black capitalism that we're trying to pull for. But the only way that we're really going to be free is we have to dismantle that system altogether. Because whether it's black capitalism, any other type of capitalism, it was built on our backs. It was built under the accumulation of African African slaves and the thievery of the land from indigenous people. Mm-hmm. So the reason why he cemented that, and in understanding like the people that he followed, Castro, and these weren't necessarily all African people, mm-hmm. but they were people that had a common sense for humanity and wanted this planet to be safe, yes. and resources to be, and then you understand what it takes for civilization to go into humanity or harmony is to have access to resources. Yes. So all of that was packed into that little bit that I said.
Black Power. Comrade Kimya says you took her read that back part.
I'm sorry, Kimya. I'm self-critical.
Rome says reading and studying is what led him to become a socialist. Yes.
Absolutely.
We have Stephanie Michelle, who says, #read that back. Never convinced that destroying capitalism would destroy racism. Mm-hmm. I felt that we could not destroy racism without destroying its economic foundation, Absolutely. Which is capitalism.
Absolutely.
Black Power. Comrade Christopher says, Huey began to hone in on his ideas, ideology, and religion to develop his own outlook on the current world. Yes, he did. Alrighty, comrades. So, that's it for today. Chapters 7 through 10. So, again, if you're just joining us, if you need the free PDF for Revolutionary Suicide, Huey P. Newton's autobiography, please comment in the comments and we will get you hooked up with that. You can reach us on any of our social media platforms, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Our usernames on Instagram and Twitter is @BlackHammer.org, all one word. And you can look us up on Facebook @BlackHammer. Just Black Hammer and the page will come right up. Support Black Hammer, support the Revolutionary Book Club by donating today. Go to GoFundMe.com/BlackHammer.org. You can go through CashApp @BHBookclub. You can donate like that. And you can also just go over to BlackHammer.org and donate like that. And my comrade Kimya.
Forgiven. Nyah.
My comrade Nyah. Who is chief of membership, is going to tell you why you should become a member of Black Hammer.
So, again, I cannot stress the importance of this book club and the political education. But again, we need people that can help us build it. Mm-hmm. All the things that we're talking about, community gardens, all the things that we want to build, taking our health into our own hands, mm-hmm. that takes people to do that. So joining Black Hammer today, even if it's something that we're not currently doing, you can bring that to the organization so that we can build whatever it is that we don't have, or expand what it is that's already in the foundational process. Mm-hmm. And so you joining today, $5 a month. $5 a month. If you wanted to join today, you can go to blackhammer.org and select join. I will be in touch with you. If you drop a fist in the comments right now, I will follow up with you personally and tell you exactly what you need to do to become a member. But this organization is really dope in that it is the people that makes the decisions. It's not somebody up top directing any and everybody to do one thing or another. It is the people.
No chairmans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of those. Nobody stuffing their pockets and just running away with it while everybody else is struggling to survive. None of that. It's the people that make the decisions where the money goes. It's us. It's a collective, and we're living by the examples of the revolutionaries that came before us. That's why you should join Black Hammer today.
Yes. Alrighty, so we're gonna get out of here. Next week we have chapters 10 through
11 through.
We'll
do 11 through 13 because that ends part 2, and then we'll be going into part 3. But are you gonna be here, or is it gonna be? We should say.
Yes, Black Power, everybody. So today is going to be my last Revolutionary Book Club, just for the moment. I'm going to be taking a break for now. So you're going to have Comrade Nyah, who is definitely more than equipped to read the Revolutionary Book Club, and I'm sure that she's definitely going to bring you guys the best political analysis of the Revolutionary Revolutionary Suicide by Comrade Huey P. Newton. I will be following along, I will be keeping up, and I will be back soon. So don't you fret, don't you worry. Black Power. See y'all. Well, Nyah see y'all next week, Sunday. But until then, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Share this live video after it ends. You know, tell your friends, family to watch it. And yeah, keep the political education going. Black Power.
Black Power, y'all.